Hello and welcome to Podtoid. We are your hosts. I'm CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Occams.
And this is episode 419. The gang is all here once more, and we have a really great show for you in store today. We're going to talk some PlayStation 5, some Indivisible. I know Chris has been champing at the bit to talk about that one. Some Red Dead Redemption 2 and more. Dan, I want to say welcome back. I hope you're feeling better today.
Oh yeah, a lot better.
I feel like I've had the crap kicked out of me because, no, not that anyone asked, but because I've spent like the last week just getting beaten up by the Terminator in Mortal Kombat. And he's a pretty formidable opponent. They've given him a lot of tools. He has a great anti-air. He has some damaging grabs, a run attack. He can teleport. He can come back from the dead. And Sonic Fox has already found a combo with him that takes off 70% of your health.
Sounds great.
So he's pretty
Sounds
powerful.
well balanced.
Yeah. NetherRealm games, generally, their DLC characters always come out, their paid DLC characters always come out really strong, usually stronger than most other people on the roster. But coincidence, I'm sure. But we usually, after a couple of weeks, things chill out a little bit and we get on top of those characters. But yeah, he's pretty devastating. So CJ,
Yes.
I need you to listen and understand.
Okay.
In Mortal Kombat right now, that Terminator is out there. He can't be bargained with. He can't be reasoned with. He doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And he absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead.
Damn.
Oh, it's times like these that I need a round of applause soundbite, just so, because that was beautiful, Chris. That was just beautiful.
It really was.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Such great acting.
I'm just giving you general advice. I don't understand why you're acting like this is some kind of thing that I've pre-prepared to do on the show. It's just
Doesn't sound well rehearsed and studied at all. I must say, that was just some wonderful off the top of your head advice to give.
just spend all your life with no friends watching films. It's really easy.
Hey, I'm halfway there, and by that I mean halfway through my life. Yeah, no, I watched Midsommar, and I know, Charlotte, you said you didn't want to see that with your boyfriend or something like that, because...
Yeah, we were going to see it, but the problem is to go and see it, we'd have had to have walked in the rain for 20 minutes, and I was kind of sick last week, so we ended up taking a rain check on going to walk it to the cinema in the rain. So I've not seen the film yet.
You can't sit in the cinema like soaking wet for 2 hours. It's no fun.
It's the worst.
Nah.
Unless you're watching like Sin City or something, and then it's just kind of it's like 4D. It just like adds to the atmosphere.
The only time a woman should be soaking wet in the theater is when she's watching Magic Mike XXL.
That may be the gayest thing you've said so far.
Thank you. Okay, before we get talking about some games and other stuff, I want to start off with a story that is actually really just for me and Occams. Sorry for the rest of y'all. And I say that because we love nonsense, and we love white people nonsense, and this is about... I found something this week that is probably the whitest nonsense imaginable.
I love white people nonsense. What are you talking about?
It's also kind of uniquely American, and I'll figure out if you know of what I'm talking about here in a moment. So cons or fan conventions, those are like a really big industry now. And, what started as a way for comic book geeks to meet each other and exchange tips on how not to shower has turned into something that basically any type of fandom can put on. So, you have sports collectible conventions, you have gaming conventions, pet conventions, bridal conventions, political conventions that just sound like the worst way to spend a weekend, furry conventions, and there's so much more. And on the weekend of November 8th, 9th, and 10th, there's going to be another convention. And Occams, I think you're going to like this because it is the Hallmark Channel Christmas Convention.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, that's right. 2 or 3 days of all of your favorite Hallmark Channel stars who all just happen to be women who had hit shows in the 90s. You too can stand in line to get an autograph from the likes of Lacey Chabert, Melissa Joan Hart, Danica McKellar, Alicia Witt, and like a bunch of other people you probably remember best from their heyday. Just don't expect to see Lori Loughlin there because she's going to prison. At the convention, you can compete in Christmas-themed contests, do Christmas shopping, because why not? And don't forget to show people that you know how to party like it's 2005 by wearing your best ugly Christmas sweater.
I would cosplay as the token ethnic friend. And get immediately arrested for wearing blackface.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have I don't think we have the Hallmark channel over here, but we do get most of those films. There's a channel that sometimes pops up on like cable. Well, it's already up. It's up now, called the Christmas Channel, and it pops up like seasonally, and it basically just runs all of those films like back to back. And they're always stories of like single women who are lonely at Christmas, and then some guy just swoops in and saves them and just makes their Christmas wonderful. And they're always called things like A Husband for Christmas and things like that.
Oh yeah, no, they're wonderful, and it's all part of like we have 3 channels that are kind of like for women over here in the U.S. There's a Hallmark channel, there's Lifetime, and then there's the Oprah Network. And so Lifetime is always stuff like a woman gets into a bad marriage and has to kill her husband and go on the run. That's like 90% of their movies.
Yeah.
And then the Hallmark channel is always like a young 25-year-old blonde white woman gets a degree in architecture, but then somehow ends up owning a candle shop in New Brunswick where she meets a handsome carpenter or something. And that's like the entire movie is them just having meet cutes for 2.5 hours. And then the Oprah channel is both of those, but with black people. So you mentioned the Christmas channel already started. So the Hallmark channel over here has what they call their countdown to Christmas, and every year it starts earlier and earlier. So they're premiering 24 new shitty Christmas movies this year. That starts on October 26th.
Perfect. My favorite thing to do is if you play the game where if you watch enough of them, you can see where they use the same house for like 6 different movies. And like that's just the same kitchen. They just move that wreath over to the left.
Or that red 60 Chevy truck with the wreath on the front that's in all of the movies.
So good. There was I watched a Cut for Time sketch from SNL that was like a Hallmark Channel spoof, but the list of movies that they were premiering were great because it was like Christmas wife wedding Christmas, wedding wife Christmas. It just
Well, here are some of the movies. I have the programming guide up. Here are some of the movies that they are premiering this year. Christmas in Graceland, Christmas at Dollywood, Christmas in Evergreen, Christmas in Rome, Christmas in the Plaza. When calls the heart Christmas? That is hard to say.
That's based on a series that Lori Loughlin was in.
Really?
When calls the heart? Yeah. It was like I think it was it's like Little House on the Prairie, but somehow worse.
Christmas Scavenger, Picture a Perfect Christmas, A Kentucky Fried Christmas, Christmas Wishes and Mistletoe Kisses, Double Holiday, The Christmas Club, Christmas in New York, Holiday Date, It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas, Check In, INN, at Christmas. And by the way, I made 2 of those titles up. I dare you to tell me which ones they were. This is nonsense, and I know that the joke is that it's only white women watching this, but every year when I go home for Christmas, my fucking dad has this shit turned on.
It's so good.
It's perfect background noise because you know that anytime you look, you actually start paying attention, it's going to be something dumb. It's going to be, what is her name? Jodie Sweetin trying to ski down a hill but falling down. Oh, whoopsies! I don't know what I'm doing on this bunny hill, and that is 35 minutes of a movie. It is just awful.
And when she comes to rest, it's like at the feet of the cute guy who happens to be the king of a fictional land, the owner of the mountain they're on because his family's owned the mountain forever, aka they own slaves, or some kind of like real estate magnate. It's perfect every time. Played
by either Chad Michael Murray or Jesse Metcalfe from Desperate Housewives.
So I'll be there. I'll be at the Hallmark Christmas convention.
That's
I'll
great.
Get my ticket.
And actually, if anyone else wants to go, tickets, you better act fast because tickets are, oh my God, they're already sold out.
See, I would go. I have no desire to meet any of those people. Like I don't. What would I say to Melissa Joan Hart? It was like, hey, I had a mild crush on you in grade school. This is awkward. No, I don't want to. Meeting celebrities is weird enough as it is. I don't know. I would love to like hang out with the fans and just like drink white wine and shit talk with women. That is kind of all I ever want to do with my life anyway. And just, it would be so great. Be me and a bunch of divorced 48-year-old women, and we would get along like gangbusters. It'd be fucking perfect.
I would love to go to this just to ask Melissa Joan Hart what the heck happened to her to make her a libertarian.
I would go just to see how long I could get Lacey Chabert to talk about Jesus, because I feel like she could go for hours on end.
Yeah. Someone pulls the cord on her back.
It's amazing she was ever on Family Guy.
Oh, of course. She was the original Meg, wasn't she? I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
Dan, do you have Hallmark Channel up there in Canada? Because this is where all those movies are filmed anyways.
We do, and I've never watched it.
You should make a point. Just like not hate watch something. Just watch something knowing it's going to be really dumb. Like an Adam Sandler film.
Maybe this year I'll give these 24 movies a chance and play the drinking game with how many times I see the kitchen.
I really take exception to the fact that that they're making like channels for women. Like what I want to watch at Christmas, like my best Christmas was when we sat down after dinner and watched Mythbusters on repeat. Like Mythbusters at Christmas. Can I make that a thing, please?
Hell yeah.
Right.
If y'all have to watch one movie in this genre, it's called Christmas Miracle. It is the story of Thomas Kincaid, and it stars Jared Padalecki of Supernatural fame. It's an insane movie because Thomas Kincaid was a piece of shit, and it's weird to see the kid from Supernatural playing him. It's so good though. If you had to watch one, watch that one.
Should clarify the name of the movie is actually Christmas Cottage, not Christmas Miracle. So anyways, moving on. Let's go ahead and get talking about games. Let's start with Charlotte, who is kicking around some Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Charlotte, what's up with that game?
So I got to the first ending about a year ago, and now I'm returning to it to do more because of my other podcast that I'm finishing the game for. And I kind of ground to a halt after the first ending because, so this is not much of a spoiler, but if you get the first ending, the missions that open up after that, a lot of them are repeats of the earlier ones, but you have to complete them at a higher difficulty level. And so I was like, nope, not doing that. I have no intention of going back and playing any of these missions. But to my great joy on having to replay them, I discovered that actually you don't. So these extra hard versions of older missions, like you can just not do them. You just have to do the ones that are brand new and also highlighted in yellow, which because I spent 45 hours getting to the first ending and just did everything, I didn't realize there was stuff you had to do and stuff that was like, obviously the side ops were optional for the most part, but I didn't really think about that. I just did everything practically. So I've been going through some of the stuff that I need to do to get further endings, and it's not really that difficult. Even after the gap, I'm not struggling to do those missions. What was really weird, though, today is that I accidentally triggered the nuclear disarmament ending, and I have no idea how I did it, because to trigger that ending, from what I've seen, you have to have everybody on your server has no nukes. I don't have a nuke, but I didn't know you could have a nuke. So apparently that ending's really hard to get, but I just accidentally got it. So one point, I think, with the PC version of the game I was looking up, where this accidentally got triggered because of a server error. And so people saw it way before Hideo Kojima intended anybody to ever see it, which is kind of sad, really, that he planned in this little Easter egg that would would at some point get triggered by people removing their nuclear weapons. And actually it got spoiled because of a server bug. And then everybody saw it.
Yeah, I think people with modified PS4s have found a way to trigger that event and just make it happen. So that might be why. At least I've seen videos of that. People have found a way to inject their game with some sort of data that can trigger it, which will then, if you're on the same server, I guess, as those people, it'll happen to you too.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot more online stuff going on than the last time I looked. Some stuff has opened up for me at least. It might have been because I got past the first ending, but apparently you can go through wormholes and basically fuck shit up on other people's bases, which I'm not really fussed about doing that. I don't like ruining other people's games. I'm just gonna keep myself to myself and get to the final ending, I think.
Do we know how many endings are in this game?
There are at least two more.
At least two more, okay.
Yeah, no spoilers, but there's like one arc that needs to be shut down, and then there's like the big reveal ending that I still need to get.
The air quote true ending kind of deal.
Yeah.
I still haven't finished it. I really need to like go back to it, but it's at that point now where I'd gotten so far into it and then stopped that when I go back, I'm not going to remember remotely what's going on, because that plot's kind of labyrinthine enough. Do you know what I mean? And if I go back to like a game I can't remember how many hours it was in, but I was deep enough into it that they're going to be talking about things. I'm just going to be like, I can't remember any of this. So I'll probably just have to play again from scratch at some point.
The only thing I know about that plot is that Quiet breathes through her skin.
Yeah.
Like a frog.
That's why she can't wear any clothes, you see. Perfectly reasonable explanation.
Yeah, I unlocked the rain ending as well today. Not the rain ending, the rain cutscene today, where they're dancing in the rain and she's writhing around on the floor, and it's just like, if I had balls, they would have shrunk back into my body. It was so pretty.
They're giggling. It's bad.
Hey,
it's real bad.
Hey, on my birthday, she gave me a cigar or something. Like,
hell yeah!
Because that's what happens when you. I don't know if you know this, but if you play the game on your birthday, like it activates little cutscenes where like the characters come up and give you gifts and stuff like that. Yeah,
that sounds like it. I actually like that. I like that idea. I like when games give you an incentive to play on certain days. Like if you ever played Simpsons Road Rage, when you played on holidays, you got special holiday cars. I love when games do that. I didn't even know that Phantom Pain did that.
Fallout 4 does that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you go to Diamond City on Christmas, it's all decorated in like lights and crap like that. Pretty neat.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to Dan. You are talking about some your vinyl collection that you've recently expanded with the Red Dead Redemption 2 soundtrack.
That's right. Probably my favorite game from this generation, and now also maybe my favorite piece of music on vinyl form. Both vinyls come in like a paper sleeve, though. I'm not really crazy about that. There's kind of like a lot of static in my experience with those, so I replaced that, which is a shame, just that the paper sleeves have these nice little decals on them and the Rockstar logo, but I don't like paper sleeves. Anyways.
That sounds super cheap.
Yeah. In some ways, they... I'll get into it. Anyways, the vinyls themselves come in like a dark, transparent red, which I liked because it goes good with my cherry red turntable. But notably, this is titled The Music of Red Dead Redemption 2. It's not in any way like an original soundtrack or like complete soundtrack, as some people might have been hoping for, which is important for something I'll get into. But if this was like the complete soundtrack, this thing would be anywhere from like 3 hours to 7 hours if you included like ambient music and mission music. Yeah. So they weren't doing that. This particular release is just like the most of the vocal tracks in the game, as well as a few very notable mission/ambient tracks. That said, though, my two favorite tunes, Unshaken by a fellow named D'Angelo, and the Mountain or as some folks refer to as Fire in Your Eyes, are both at the start of each vinyl, which is great, so I can just move the needle back to the start and replay them over and over, which I have done a ton.
They got D'Angelo for the soundtrack?
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, this
crazy,
incredible song called Unshaken. It's like one of the best tunes of the game. But Fire in Your Eyes, though, specifically, is a tune that hits really hard on the emotions, especially if you've completed Red Dead Redemption 2. It's like the one song that'll get me a little teary-eyed, which is embarrassing to say, but hey, it happens.
How's the sound? Because a couple of weeks ago you were talking about the Silent Hill discs and you were a little disappointed in them. So...
Yeah, these sound fabulous. They're a lot better than the Metal Gear Solid release, but I think that came just down due to compression. This is obviously uncompressed. It's a 45 RPM notably, so you gotta... Don't try and play it on the standard 33, or it'll all sound slow motion, which really caught me off guard at first. But I absolutely adore the music on here. I listen to it both on my headphones and on my 2-channel speaker setup, and it sounds fantastic.
It's cool how the Red Dead games have great soundtracks to them, because obviously with like Grand Theft Auto and all that, you've got all those radio stations and all those. And I don't think there's too many radio stations in the Red Dead games, but it's cool that they still have great music off them. I always remember, and this is going back a bit, but like I always remember Red Dead Revolver. All the soundtrack was just songs from like, or music from Euro westerns. And that was just, I remember at the time just thinking that was so cool. If you were into like kind of like B movies and you were playing the game, it had all these like B movie tracks in. And like the main track from Revolver was You Better Smile by an artist called Nicola Di Bari. And it was basically the theme from Django Preparati la Barra, which is one of the unofficial Django sequels. And I remember just putting in a game and hearing that tune and just being like, there's like Euro Western tracks in this game, and it seems ridiculous, but at the time that just felt like so hardcore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
no, definitely.
It's really cool that they managed to compile these big great soundtracks off of these games. So has it got a lot of like tracks on it by artists that aren't in the game, like music inspired by, or is it all just like music from the game?
Yeah, there's one track specifically. I don't know if he made this song for the game or if this was like just something that's already out there. I'm not a big Willie Nelson fan or anything like that, but there's a Willie Nelson tune in the game that's really, really good. And there's also like a cover of it from the actual producer of the whole entire soundtrack that's also really good. Notably, though, there was one track that didn't make it into the music of Red Dead Redemption 2 release that had a lot of people annoyed. If you've played Red Dead Redemption 2, you'll immediately know what I'm talking about. There is a specific vocal track that plays, and with as little context as I can give, during a segment where you're building a house, basically. And the whole tune revolves around building a house. It was immensely popular. People loved it. Like, I remember specifically listening to the Giant Bombcast during their Game of the Year debates, and Brad and Alex showcased this tune in an attempt to convince the others that this game deserved, best music of the year or whatever. Never got that, but it was a really good song, and I was shocked that they didn't include it, as were a bunch of other people. So
I'll tell you, a soundtrack I really liked was for Dying Light. The night music sounded really, really close to like a Goblin soundtrack, and it stuck with me.
Dying Light in general was a game that just caught me off guard. I went into that game expecting to hate it, because I despised Dead Island. I had a miserable time playing Dead Island back in the day, and I got Dying Light because I was writing a review for it, and I went in with like the lowest expectations you can have, and that game caught me off guard in the best possible way. I ended up loving that game.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun one. I'm quite fond of it myself.
All right, moving on. Occams, tell us about this special kill that so many people from so many generations love.
All right, yeah, so I mean, I talk about video games, but who cares? I'm still playing the same thing I'm always playing, just because I play like 2 hours a week. So, I'm going to talk, it's Halloween, getting close to it. I'm going to talk about my favorite kill from Friday the 13th. It's in part 7, The New Blood. You know what it is, folks. It's the sleeping bag kill. The first time I saw this as a child, I was giddy. So that probably speaks a lot about me, but the idea of just getting someone a sleeping bag and hitting them against a tree. I think it's one of the purest kills Jason has ever had in the series. It is something that in my mind I have gone to in like meetings and family reunions and waiting in line for anything, and just in my day-to-day life it'll pop into my head in moments where I go, yeah, I get it, Jason Voorhees, I really fucking get it. It's just one of my favorites. Apparently, it's Kane Hodder who played Jason in this movie and many others. It's his favorite kill from the series, and it still ranks as like one of the top 3 for when people rank these things. And it makes me so happy. And 'tis the season for thinking about all things scary and gory. And so yeah, sleeping bag kill. If you haven't seen it, first off, if you haven't seen the Jason movies, go watch all of them. It's a strange roller coaster of fun, and they're well worth your time. And it's the sleeping bag kill. It's the clips on YouTube if you want to look it up. Easy to find, and it's a wonderful thing. It's just a white girl in a sleeping bag gets hit against the tree and she dies. It's just there's a beauty in that simplicity.
And this is something that has stayed with the character, the Jason character, as he's appeared in other mediums. For instance, they reference it in his Mortal Kombat appearance. He has a kill where he grabs him by the leg and beats him against the ground until they split into a bunch of pieces. So that's it's kind of a reference. But in the Friday the 13th game, the asymmetrical multiplayer game, it's one of the legendary kills. If you can catch someone going into a tent, you can perform the sleeping bag tree kill. It's a little bit different in the game because he hits them a lot more. But yeah, no, I think this is something that it seems so simple, and yet it's so effective because, first of all, when I was young, the idea that when I was going camping with my family and being in my sleeping bag, that my brother was going to do something to me because, I had this bag over my head, that was always in the back of my mind. And so for them to prey on that childhood fear, I think was just so good. And it's such a blunt kill. Just easy and really it's done. Yeah.
And it showcases the power of Jason. Just like the physicality of the character, which I really like. And actually, the writer of the movie, when they added that kill into the script, it was based on that exact experience of his brother. Like, I'm gonna fuck with you because you're in the sleeping bag. It's just that's taken to that kind of extreme level. I love it absolutely, and it's almost comical too, in a way. Like a lot of the Jason movies, the kills, the first couple Jasons, they play it fairly straightforward. But I think Jason Takes Manhattan, where he like uppercuts a dude's head off who's a boxer, and it gets so campy and silly. And this is kind of in that progression of it, but it's all so much fun.
You also kind of like, you want to watch that moment in isolation, because Part 7's like easily one of the worst films in the series. It's fucking awful. But it does have that moment that came out of it. It's got two moments. It's got that, and it's got, at the end, a house explodes, and they rigged it with way too many explosives, like way more than they needed. And they set this fucking thing to detonate, and it like went off so hard that it like melted all the equipment and all the cameras that were surrounding the house. Like, so you also see that in the trailer. So it's right at the end of the trailer, but there is no explosion in the movie. Like, there was matchsticks left of that house after it's exploded. But those two moments in isolation are pretty good, but Seven's a pretty rough entry, I think.
I would say that you should watch all the movies, even the bad ones, which I completely agree, Chris, that it's not a great film, but it's that journey for Jason. It's just such a fun experience to watch the evolution of the idea of the teenagers to the kills, to how campy it can be.
There is a notable moment in the hit film Jason X, which is in itself a magical movie, where Jason X not only kills someone in a sleeping bag, kills two people in a sleeping bag by beating the other person in the sleeping bag with the other person in a sleeping bag.
It's one of those things. Well, where you're in space, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? It's like when they put critters in space. They had to really up the ante.
They put critters in space.
There's like Critters 4 is Critters in Space.
Oh, shit. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to something decidedly less violent and talk about some Doraemon Story of Seasons. This is the new Story of Seasons game that just released this last week for Switch and PC. It combines the gameplay of Story of Seasons, aka Harvest Moon, and no, I don't want to get into that conversation again, with characters from the Japanese anime. I think it's pronounced Doraemon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I know the manga is popular in Japan. I don't think it made any sort of an impact here in the United States. In Europe, is Doraemon a big character?
I don't remember that character ever being on like television or being referenced on merchandise or anything in this country. Nowadays, possibly, because we've adopted so much of like manga and anime culture, but easily up until like 2005, the only way you knew that character was to be actively seeking out Japanese culture. You never saw, they never translated any of that stuff over here.
I was just wondering, because this game did get a physical release in Europe, whereas in the US it's only a digital release. But I picked it up. I'm not a fan of Doraemon. I'm really a fan of Story of Seasons, and because Animal Crossing isn't coming until next year, I need something of that ilk to carry me over the holidays. And I just really, I really love the art direction in this game, this colored pencil kind of aesthetic that they have going on. They're really playing up the idea that this is like a picture book, because the entire screen is surrounded by the white tapered edges, which is, that's kind of the new thing if you want a game to kind of feel for kids or whimsical. But the art direction is just so fantastic. And, Story of Seasons has generally been a handheld franchise for several years now, probably even a decade or more. And so this is going to be, its return to consoles. And for the longest time, I was wondering how they were going to do it. Were they going to go full 3D, like with Animal Parade or the games that they had on the GameCube and Wii, or were they going to kind of keep it the top-down look that they had on the 3DS games? And this game was in development at the same time as another Story of Seasons game, so I kind of hope that they're keeping the same art direction and just kind of camera direction, I guess, for both games, because I love it. I mean, on my big 50-inch screen TV, you kind of see a little bit of the cracks with the art direction, with the color pencils, with the the objects you can interact with do kind of look very different from the objects in the background that you can't interact with, but it's just so beautiful, and it's nice to see little improvements made to the animation in the game that you didn't get in previous entries. Like when Nobi, who is the main character in this game, is running around, he has a backpack, and the backpack just has a little bounce to it when he moves, and it's such a nice touch that it really gives me hope for what they're doing with the next proper entry into the Story of Seasons franchise, because this is a series that's kind of rested on its laurels, and it's kind of it hasn't really done a lot in the past to go above and beyond in terms of what it does with art direction and graphic. And what I like most about the art direction in this game is that it's completely different from what we're seeing in the Friends of Mineral Town remake that is also coming. That comes out in Japan, I believe, this year, and it comes to us next year. And that is, that game looks like a mobile game. It's just these tiny, giant head chibi characters, and it's all big and bright and beautiful, but it's just like it's so cheap looking, and that's not what this is. This is it's whimsical, and I think that's what Story of Seasons should be. These are never intense games. They sometimes have some melodramatic elements, but it's always just a pleasant experience. And when you can have an art direction that just feeds into that pleasantness, it just makes the whole experience all that much better. And one thing I didn't think I was going to like, but I do, is the character art direction, because, they don't necessarily match the backgrounds all that well, because they are based off of a manga that started in the 1970s. It's very simple character art, but to me it's a nice palette cleanser from what we've seen in the other Story of Seasons game, where it's all the big-eyed magical girls. I like how simple it is, and it really fits. It fits the theme, and it fits the genre, and I kind of hope that, obviously I don't want the next proper Story of Seasons to just copy this character art direction exactly, but I would like to see them rein in some of the character designs to be a little more simple, because, again, it just all adds in, all weaves itself into the pleasantness of this experience.
If you're interested in the art design of Doraemon and the world, and you like the characters, then maybe it might be worth looking into some of that manga for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Wrapping up the games talk, we're going to go to Chris. You reviewed Indivisible this week, and you're ready to talk about it. Tell us about the game.
Okay, so as some of you know, I've been looking forward to this game for quite a while. It's ever since it was first announced back in 2015 or whatever, and I kept my eye on it because I'm a big Lab Zero fan, and I love Skullgirls. I think it's one of the top 10 best fighting games of all time. I genuinely think that. So I was looking forward to this. And Indivisibles, it's like a platformer come RPG, come Metroidvania, but it doesn't really double down on any of those genres. The platforming is kind of mixed in quality. It's an RPG, but it doesn't really have stats or gear or armor or anything like that. And it's a Metroidvania, but it's a little lacking in the exploration. But it does have a lot going for it that's really good. It's a really, really pretty game. The world's really rich and colourful and vibrant. The lighting's excellent. There's great use of light and shadow. And like the character art and animation is fantastic. I can't emphasise enough how good the characters are and how quickly, just like Skullgirls, how quickly you just fall in love with the cast and you find them funny and you love little design things about them and how unique they all are from each other. And that's definitely, like I said in my review, the ace of the game is its character. And it has this really smart combat that they borrowed from Valkyrie Profile, the old PS1 game. And it basically lets the player develop bespoke combos in real time. So you have a character assigned to a face button. Any 4 of the characters you meet are assigned to face buttons. And then you literally can do like up and triangle and then follow that up with XX and then up and circle to make a juggle start and then do a super, almost like a fighting game but with a party. And that's like a really cool idea, and all the moves are really unique to each character and fit keeping with their own themes, and it's all just so beautifully animated, like fantastic animation, and just it's kind of really smart in that sense. And that just makes kind of the flaws of the game all that more frustrating, because there are problems with the game on a technical level. And I've brought them up in my review, and a lot of players have brought them up in like YouTube comments or comments on the review or whatever. But there's quite a few places that aren't mentioning them, which confuses me because they definitely exist. I suffered a frame rate issue on PS4 in most of the busy locations. It got better after a patch, and then I believe it's been patched again, so I haven't gone back to check. But there was definite stuttering happening in some of the areas. There's a bit of a pacing problem with how it feeds the game to you. You go through kind of large areas of emptiness followed by short moments that are kind of jam-packed, which sometimes throws you. Like you might think you're heading towards the end of a chapter and it turns out you've still got a long way to go, that kind of stuff. But the biggest issue at the moment, and this is like without hyperbole, I swear, like after the halfway point or a little after the halfway point, like the difficulty nosedives, and no exaggeration, you can like come up against any character, any villain or sub-boss from say the midpoint or a little over the midpoint onwards, and you can beat them in seconds. You can beat them in like it's your turn. Send all your guys in with their standard attack. Do that twice, and you'll probably beat them. Like whatever the character is, unless you might have to break armor and then do it. But it's broken. It's like legitimately broken, because the second half of the game was me mashing with ease through every opponent I came across. Like with total, and it's disappointing because that combat system's so smart and rewards ingenuity, but you don't need ingenuity because there's this real drop off in difficulty. And the crazy thing is Ajna, the hero, she can go up 5 tiers of power, and by the time I finished the game, I was only at the 3rd tier and I was destroying everybody. So there were still 2 more tiers of power for her to go. So I can't imagine what it must be like when you're fully powered. But it happens kind of out of the blue. It's very weird, and I'm just hoping that... I've seen a lot of other people mention it, so I'm just hoping, because the positive thing here is that can be tweaked. And they can turn that around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the patch or whatever. And they can patch the frame rate issues. Do you know what I mean? But at the moment, these are kind of game-breaking problems. You can play through the game, and you can have fun with it, and you can dig the story, and you can get to the finale, and the finale is pretty cool. But the journey kind of gets a bit stagnant as the game goes on, because it gets so easy. And it's a shame, because like away from those negatives, I do still love the game. Like I love what the game is, and I love how it looks, and I love its world and its characters. I'm disappointed that it's not like the goatee for me that I was expecting, but it's a stunning looking game. The soundtrack's great. It tells a genuinely moving story that legit brought a tear to my eye, and I've got no embarrassment with admitting that. But that's, I cry. Everything makes me fucking cry. My flavor of soup makes me cry. It's part of the bonus content of having crippling depression, basically. But Indivisible, filled with wonderful, well-performed, really great characters, and is a fun adventure in a good world. But these flaws are very real. They're game-breaking, and for the game to reach its potential, they need to be addressed.
Hopefully they will be.
I hope so too. Like, and with the world they've created and the characters they've created, like, let's have some more. I'm well up for a sequel down the line, or a spin-off, or if the moon and the stars align correctly, a Skullgirls 2 would be absolutely fantastic. And you could put some of these characters in there because they're all pretty good fighters. There's definitely still reason to play Indivisible because it's such kind of like a gorgeous game, but that it does have problems, and not everyone seems to be talking about these problems, but they are there, definitely.
I just want to say that every time you've said Skullgirls, I keep hearing it as Schoolgirls, and so when you say I love Schoolgirls, it makes me a little worried.
Oh, no.
Worried about having you on the podcast.
Wait, you see, I don't hear that because like my mind's not in the gutter.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, that is it for games, but we do have some headlines to cover. It is time for the news. And this week there was just a lot of news, but we're not going to talk about all of it, just a few stories this week. And we're going to start with Sony's announcement of the PlayStation 5 that will arrive. They announced that it will arrive in the holiday season of next year. They previously announced that they were working on the next generation of PlayStation earlier this year. But it was really weird that this is how it was announced. They were asked about it in a Wired magazine article, and then they issued a short blog post stating the console is going to come next year. They just had a state of play where this information could have been given out, but I guess, if you don't want to take away attention from the PlayStation 4 games you still have coming, then that's maybe not the way to do it. But it just seems weird that PlayStation 5 is the release window is confirmed in a magazine article and then a little short blog post. Beyond the release window, we also got some confirmation of what the next generation PlayStation controller will do, and it will apparently feature haptic technology to replace the rumble feature and adaptive triggers on the L2, R2 buttons that will allow developers to program the resistance of the triggers. As for the games, the Wired article noted that games will no longer be treated as big blocks of data as they are now, and that developers would have the option to divide installation. Sony also used the blog post to remind everyone that Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima is still coming to the PlayStation 4 next year. Even though there was a lot we don't know, there was a lot to unpack. Again, the adaptive triggers is going to be interesting. I could see like the next generation God of War going overboard on that feature. Dan, what are your thoughts on the adaptive triggers?
I'm a huge Gran Turismo fan.
Okay.
And I will say this right now, for racing games, that will be a godsend. Especially for a hardcore, I shouldn't say hardcore, but a very simulation-based driving game like Gran Turismo. And we haven't had a proper Gran Turismo yet, so I can only assume Gran Turismo 7 will be a PlayStation 5 title at this point. So I'm actually looking forward to that in the sense of driving games. But I could definitely see it being abused in like other things, and I can already picture how they'll maybe shoehorn that into like Spider-Man 2. So,
do you think now that Xbox is going to have to match this? Because haptic feedback is going to be very, the rumble feature is been the same as it's been forever, but haptic feedback is something completely different. I think it will change how you interact with games, and especially when you take damage in games. And I know that Xbox has the superior racing series with Forza. Do you think they are going to have to match that with their controllers to have adaptive triggers?
They probably will, but I'm not sure. But I take issue with superior Forza series, but whatever. That's my inner Gran Turismo fanboy from like 12 years ago, sinking in, getting mad.
Yeah, the last time they had a good Gran Turismo game, 12 years ago.
Not wrong.
I'm kind of a little bit boring with this kind of thing because I'm not trying to be about it, but I'm just not bothered with like things that a pad can do. Mm-hmm. I'm still just like I just want the buttons to be normal. And yeah, of course, I want it to be responsive. I want it to feel good. I want it to have a nice weight to it and all that. But like, I've got no interest in you developing better forms of rumble or triggers that can increase resistance. I just want pads to just be standard controllers. Do you know what I mean?
The thing is, like the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 2 controllers, they had very analog feedback, whereas the PS4 controller is purely digital. And playing something like Gran Turismo Sport, for example, it's noticeable. It was noticeable enough for me that I noticed. I was like, oh, this makes these really hard turns more difficult, I would say. Whereas having that feedback, feeling that resistance on the wheel when you're turning, that'll be nice. That'll be genuinely a great thing for, I guess, the next Gran Turismo.
Sure, and maybe I'm just being a bit, because the main games I'm probably going to play are fighting games, and the last thing I want in a fighting game is any kind of resistance in the buttons. Like, I don't know if you all know this, but like I think it was the original Street Fighter arcade that had like there was builds of that arcade that had buttons that if you wanted to do hard kick, you had to actually punch the button harder. Like,
That's why you use a fight stick.
Which just basically resulted in like all those arcades getting beat the fuck up and not working after like a couple of months. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, like when it comes to controllers, I'm really boring. Like whenever I can, unless it's vital to play the game, I always turn Rumble off, and I'm just not bothered about that stuff. I'm glad that they're developing it, but I always feel that when they go, oh, we're working harder on Rumble, I always feel that that's the least important thing about the future of gaming that you should be working on. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah.
The only thing that bothers me is like games that do like the thing where, especially with the PS4 controller, where they put certain sound effects into the fucking controller. I turned that off every time. I thought it was cool when they did it in No More Heroes on the Nintendo Wii when you did a phone call and you put it up to your like ear like a phone. That was the only time that was ever cool to me. That's it.
Well, you'll be pleased to hear that they've already announced that they've improved the speaker in the new pad. So
epic! I can't wait for another 2-hour fucking battery life. I've had my PS4 controllers now since roughly launch. I got my PlayStation 4 in like 2014, and they both maybe now last an hour and a half before I have to put it back in the dock and grab the other one, because the fucking battery is horrendous. I really hope they improve that, because it's awful. Like the Joy-Cons, I never have to recharge those things ever while I'm playing, because they last so long, and it's great. I love it. I wish more of these controllers did that.
Yeah, I haven't really taken in any of the news about the controller because I was more stuck on the fact that the PS5 it's now officially a thing. And I'm not feeling too into it. Like, I'm just sad because I've got really used to my PS4 now and I kind of don't want to get a new console. Like, it always felt to me like the PS3 was more my comfort zone, and I enjoy until very recently I used to play my PS3 almost as much as my PS4, but like now I'm really getting into the groove with the PS4 and now it's getting replaced and it's really sad.
To be fair, when this thing launches, it would have been 7 years now for the PlayStation 4, which doesn't feel like it, by the way. I wrote about this and I was like, it's been 7 years?
It is time, but it's still really sad because I feel like there's just so many good games that are still coming out for it.
And to your note there of so many good games still coming out, it feels all really low-key. For the past 3 years now, they've been like, yeah, The Last of Us 2 is going to come out sometime. Maybe. It's coming out. Spider-Man's now finally out. And so far, the only thing they've been kind of beating their drum with is The Last of Us 2. And it's just weird that they're now announcing the PlayStation 5 through a blog post. And in terms of, like, actual games to look forward to, it's just a big, like, shrug.
I think they're on because they have so few first-party games left for the PlayStation 4, they're just, or whatever Death Stranding is, because I think that's still coming to PC, they're kind of going all in on each title as it comes up to its launch date. So, they've been going big on Death Stranding and it's just about out. They're now going to start going big on The Last of Us Part 2 because it comes out in February. And then after that, they're going to go big on the Ghost of Tsushima because that, between that and Dreams, those might be the last two big games for the PlayStation 4.
In regards to what you were saying as well, Charlotte, I guess the small victory is it, although it hasn't been like super officially inked confirmed, it is looking pretty snug that PS4 backwards compatibility is going to be a thing. So at least you can still play those games, even if you're going to have to play them in a different box. Probably a £800 box. I don't know. Yeah.
And a stupider looking box as well.
I hope it does not look like that. Image is like the weirdest idea since that original Xbox was going to just be a big vertical X. I remember that.
They prototyped that. That thing it's out there. You can find it.
I just hope it doesn't backfire on them like when, Homer Simpson designs that car and it's just a complete eyesore.
The Homer, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And all the horns should play La Cucaracha.
speaking of The Simpsons, Vlad Seraldi, formerly developer of Radical Entertainment, believes it is time for a remake of The Simpsons Hit and Run. Released on the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, which is where I owned it, Hit and Run was a parody of Grand Theft Auto featuring a playable Homer, Bart, Marge, Lisa, and Apu in a fully recreated Springfield, though it was split into sections. Many of the show's joke locations can be found in the game, and it is genuinely one of the funniest games ever made. It is like a really great Simpsons episode. Getting a remake might be difficult because of the rights. That game was released by Activision. EA, I believe, still owns the gaming rights for The Simpsons, and The Simpsons now belong to Disney. So there's a lot of different hands in this pot to kind of get this made. And the only thing that's giving me hope that it might happen is, one of the developers wants it to happen, and two, we did eventually get a remake of GoldenEye, even though that had a whole bunch of different ownership issues. So it might happen with The Simpsons Hit and Run.
So you mean they might bring out Simpsons Hit and Run, but instead of Homer Simpson, you're Daniel Craig?
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what you meant, wasn't it? Yeah.
That is exactly what I meant. And instead of Springfield, it's London. Anyone else here enjoy Simpsons Hit and Run in its prime?
Yeah, no, it's one of the best Simpsons games like ever made. I still have my copy on the Xbox, and I'd love for it to be remade, but between all the copyright stuff and EA being like, people have been beating the drum now for Skate 4 for how long?
Yeah, but I think Simpsons games sold better than Skate did.
Yeah,
Like,
sure, but
Hit and Run sold 3 million copies. The Simpsons game for EA sold 4 million copies. So I don't think Skate approached that.
Let me just put it this way: EA, my expectations for EA are like so fucking rock bottom this generation. I expect nothing, and I'll be disappointed. So
I would expect, if you want to be even more disappointed than nothing, they remake Simpsons Skateboarding. That was an awful, awful game.
They could make it a double pack of Simpsons skateboarding and Simpsons wrestling, and it'd just be like double the disappointment.
No, I liked Simpsons wrestling. That was bad, but it was fun bad. Simpsons skateboarding was just so broken you could have zero fun with it.
I want a backyard wrestling.
I played Hit and Run a little bit. I think it's kind of a fun game. I appreciate them coming up with GTA games for like the kids that couldn't play GTA. Not that there were like children out there that like, I worked in a store, and I spent 20 fucking years selling GTA games to parents, but you try to push them towards the Simpsons Hit and Run, or towards like the Incredible Hulk, a game that was kind of like a GTA game in a way, like open world adventure.
Love that game.
Yeah,
that game fucking rules.
Ultimate Destruction, yeah.
That's it. But one thing I do know about Hit and Run is I think some like dedicated fans, actually expanded the game themselves. Like they came up with a mod that added more characters and more missions and more vehicles and locations and stuff like that, because they were like, they didn't want that fucking game to die. So they basically built their own expansion pack and like released it online.
Oh, that would be so sweet, because it's so ripe for opportunity when they have Springfield recreated as well as it is in that game. To go above and beyond just having the Simpsons and Apu as playable characters. I mean, there is so much more you can do. I think it was kind of a short game. I think you could beat it in less than 20 hours. But it still remains, it's easily the best Simpsons game ever made. I don't think anything comes close in comparison. And it's something that has stuck with people. We've received a lot of emails. This was mentioned in the article on it, that there was a petition that got 6,500 signatures. The guy who started that petition emailed us for weeks and weeks and weeks trying to get this going. So, we generally don't cover petitions because it's kind of a waste of our time to write about something like that. But if he ends up getting 650,000 signatures on there, and they do somehow, even if it's not a remake, just to port it to modern consoles, or to release it as a classic re-release or something like that. I think it is generally something I would play every console generation with every new piece of equipment I buy, because I enjoy it just that much.
No matter what generation it is, you can always go out and find eggs for Bart. Shout out to memes from like 7 fucking years ago.
Which was the Simpsons game which was a rip-off of Crazy Taxi?
That was Road Rage.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Like, I played that more than I played the Hit and Run, so I would love like a double bill sort of re-release of both of those.
Well, Sega sued them over Road Rage, so I don't think we'd get a double bill of that one because they sued them over that damn Arrow.
I think ultimately kind of the issue we've got here is that Simpsons, like a lot of things, a bit like the James Bond franchise again, is just so mired in so many fingers, in so many pies, and casting issues and licensing and the game and the publishers and who actually owns the Simpsons now compared to who owned it then, and characters that were in the game then who they don't put in the show anymore. I think there's a real. It's not quite like SpongeBob, like putting up Battle for Bikini Bottom again. There's a lot of hoops to jump through to get that Simpsons game.
Even for just a port on a new system, you'd still have to do all the legal stuff together, and that sounds like a nightmare.
Do I want it to happen? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen?
No. 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 Yes. I mean, no. No.
So I'm not having a stroke. I'm not having a stroke. Okay.
All right. We are just about out of time, but before we go, Occams, we have a community shout out.
Yeah, it's kind of a double deuce. So, sad note, Wolf of the Blues had a loss in her family recently. She posted about it, and our hearts go out to her for that. But the community response, and this is always the case, whenever somebody's down or is going through something, and the community just always comes through and expresses their support. It's a really beautiful thing to witness. And I'm really sorry, Wilf, that you're going through a time with your family, but the community loves you, and it warms my heart to see the community reach out to anyone on the site to help out. So it's a community shout out for the week.
Nice. Very nice. And that is good to hear. I love when our community does step up in situations like that, because it just reminds me of why I started coming here in the first place.
Exactly.
They are an anchor. They're like the spine of the site, and I love all of them for it.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, that is it for the show. On behalf of Chris, Charlotte, Dan, Occams, and myself, thank you for listening to Podtoid, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, and the Destructoid YouTube channel.